a struggling actress in 1976 who would stop at nothing to obtain a part. She accepted a role that would haunt her legacy when Francis Ford Coppola offered her a role in Apocalypse Now. Today, no big star would dare pose for pictures like she did. However, destiny had other ideas. The movie set was devastated when a powerful typhoon struck the Philippines. Carter had to get out of there. What occurred next elevated her to superstardom as Wonder Woman. Those pictures from the Philippines, though, they are still present but concealed from view. Lynda Carter, whose full name is Lynda Jean Cordova Carter, was born in Phoenix, Arizona. On July 24, 1951, she had a mix of Scots-Irish, English, and Mexican ancestry. Juanita, her mother, was a Mexican immigrant from Salamanca who worked as a secretary while battling alcoholism. Colby, her father, barely provided for their family with his meager electrical contracting business. They were in a working-class neighborhood in a modest home valued at around $8,000. And a lot of Lynda's early life was influenced by the difficulties of their mixed heritage in the 1950s. Casting directors later acknowledged that their doubts about her cinematic potential stemmed from the fact that her dark features and sharp cheekbones didn't conform to Hollywood's usual ideals of beauty. However, these same qualities would eventually make her stand out and help her land the part that brought her fame. At the age of 5, she had a passion for acting. She carried a microphone nearly as large as herself as she took the stage at the Arizona State Fair in 1956. She performed the ballad Frankie and Johnny, which recounted the startling tale of a lady who shoots her cheating lover. The crowd astonished at the unconventional decision, and the judges gave her $25, or almost $280 in today's currency, in addition to first prize. In an attempt to earn a little extra cash, her mother had surreptitiously entered her in the tournament. Lynda was enthralled by that one performance, and sang throughout her early years at community centers, churches, and even on local TV programs. She was making up to $20 a weekend by the age of 8. Singing "How Much Is That Dog in the Window?", one of her favorite songs, she lost track of how many times. She learned how to dominate an audience from those early experiences. A few years later, in 1972, she represented Arizona in the Miss World USA competition in Miami. Although she was widely seen as a favorite, the event was tainted by corruption. Subsequent reports showed that several judges had received bribes, and winners were frequently selected more for their marketability than for their impartiality. After reaching the semifinals, Lynda was devastated and spent weeks in a state of sorrow, contemplating quitting entertainment completely. She subsequently referred to it as the most devastating event in her early life. However, she eventually left the pageant industry and pursued acting as a result of that disillusionment, where she was able to leave her mark. She lived the hard life of a nightclub singer before, to her big break, she played 6 nights a week in small casinos and smoky lounges from 1970 to 1973. Initially in Phoenix and then in Las Vegas, she performed for as little as $50 every night at Phoenix's Torch Lounge. Frequently, in front of a small crowd, she found work in lesser casinos in Vegas, such as the Mint and El Cortez, where the pay was marginally higher but the working conditions weren't. She slept in a dilapidated motel, shared dressing rooms with strippers and comedians, and occasionally required steroid injections to maintain her voice over the cigarette smoke. One night in Reno, a drunk flung a beer bottle that narrowly missed her head. She learned to be resilient throughout those years, even though there was hardly enough money to get by. And audience interaction, skills she applied to her acting career when she married Ron Samuels, a successful Hollywood talent agent who was 15 years her senior. In 1974, her personal life took a drastic turn. On the surface, their extravagant wedding in Beverly Hills appeared dazzling, but it was a controlling and traumatic marriage behind closed doors. Samuels oversaw almost every aspect of her life, from her professional choices to the attire she wore while keeping a sizable portion of her income. He negotiated a $5,000 per episode contract for her on the Wonder Woman series, but he maintained an abnormally high percentage of her earnings for himself. Lynda eventually learned that he had been secretly taking considerably more money. After 5 years, the marriage collapsed, leaving her to fight bitterly to regain everything she had lost, both monetarily and emotionally. Francis Ford Coppola was elated following The Godfather's triumph. and he was able to take chances with his next movie, Apocalypse Now, because of that success. One of his boldest choices was putting a teenage Lynda Carter in the role of Miss May, one of the Playboy playmates in the famed USO show sequence. Early in 1976, Carter took a plane to the Philippines, where Coppola had a huge set constructed specifically for the scene. The goal was to document the bizarre scene where playmates amuse soldiers in Vietnam, only to let the fun get out of hand. Carter posed topless for a counterfeit Playboy centerfold made as a prop for the movie during her brief stay on set, with party jokes and filler writing on the back. The enormous picture, which measured roughly 23 by 11 inches, was designed to resemble an actual magazine spread. These pictures continue to be the only naked photos she took during her career, making them an oddity in movie history. Coppola retained her centerfold in the last cut, even after she quit. It may still be recognized in sequences aboard the patrol boat, a little but lasting record of her participation in one of cinema's most famous war epics. She had no intention of leaving. Typhoon Olga, which had maximum sustained winds of 150 kilometers per hour, struck the Philippines in May 1976. Some areas were flooded with 50 inches of rain, and the wreckage was tremendous. Approximately 80% of the intricate sets, including the massive USO stage, were destroyed during the production of Apocalypse Now in IBA. 374 persons were killed in the storm, caused damage of almost $70 million, and left more than 1.3 million people homeless. The crew's supplies were washed away, dolly tracks were buried beneath mud, and generators were swamped on site. The production ceased, and for Carter, the catastrophe meant returning to America. Her life would be altered by what transpired next. She received the news that she had been cast as Wonder Woman while she was back home. It couldn't have come at a more disastrous time. When production eventually resumed, she was trapped into the series by her new contract rather than going back to the Philippines. She became one of the most well-known celebrities of her era because to that show, which ran from 1975 to 1979, the idea that a natural disaster forced her to move directly into the role that would define her career from a supporting role in Apocalypse Now is startling. Eventually, Coppola replaced Miss May with Colleen Camp, but it wasn't an easy change. For a fresh centerfold, Camp had to pose topless in the same manner as Carter in order to keep things consistent, although no one has ever confirmed it. There was a rumor that Camp's head was even positioned over Carter's torso for some of the pictures. The path to become Wonder Woman was not an easy one for Lynda Carter. The public was mostly unaware of the hardships, dangers, and traumatic experiences that went hand in hand with the role's glamour. The odds were stacked against her when she first tried out for the part. Over 2,000 actresses auditioned, including Kate Jackson, Jaclyn Smith, and Farrah Fawcett women who would go on to become independent stars. Carter was only 23 at the time. She only had $25 in her bank account when she got the call that would transform her life, and she had no acting experience other than her title as Miss World USA. Money remained a problem. Even after getting the job, she only received $90 per week, just over minimum wage, for the pilot episode. It stood in stark contrast to the enormous sum of money the studio spent on the production. After the show was picked up, her pay increased to $3,500 each episode, which was a positive development. She was making over $1 million annually by the last season, a significant increase that demonstrated how vital she had become to the show's success. But the problem wasn't just money. On screen, the iconic Wonder Woman costume was gorgeous, but behind the scenes, it was a continuous source of issues. The crew had to use tape and adhesives to keep the strapless top in place because it frequently slipped during stunts. Makeup artists had to cover the unpleasant marks left by the metal eagle pressing into her skin. Her movement was limited by the tight garment, which made circulation issues and stunts much more challenging. The initial bikini design proved to be unmanageable during water sequences, therefore a wetsuit was used instead. Carter later acknowledged that wearing the costume was like battling a nightmare every day. She was also in serious danger because of her dedication to genuineness. She insisted on doing a helicopter stunt herself in one episode, hanging 50 feet in the air without the appropriate safety equipment. When the filmmakers learned, they were incensed, but Carter had already put her life in danger to make the scenario appear authentic. The riskiest task was done by her stunt double, Jeannie Epper. However, Carter was always in danger of getting hurt since she was ready to push herself. Her body suffered long-term consequences from these decisions, including years of back discomfort and surgeries. She struggled privately until her mid-20s, and the anguish ultimately led her to rely on medicine in ways she never meant. Her personal life was also frighteningly invaded by the job. Obsessed fans went too far as the show's popularity increased. As she changed, one cameraman spied on her by drilling a hole in the wall of her dressing room. Even if he was arrested and dismissed, the harm had already been done. The stalking continued after she felt vulnerable and in danger. She was constantly in danger as a result of the fans who followed her and even broke into her personal areas. Despite portraying the fiercest lady on television, an intense struggle amongst networks added to the strain. The exorbitant cost of creating period settings caused ABC, which aired the first season set in World War II, to put off renewing the show. CBS offered to take over, but they insisted that the plot change to the contemporary 1970s. With Carter as the sole true link to the original version, the transfer drastically altered the show and eliminated the majority of the original cast. Although she kept the program going during the upheaval, it made clear how vulnerable even a popular series could be to network politics. Even outside the industry fights, Carter faced antagonism from outside groups. Wonder Woman's message of female empowerment in the 1970s contrasted with conservative critics, who saw the character as a threat to traditional values. Carter later claimed that she could have used the death threats to wallpaper her house because they were so frequent. She had to live with security measures and ongoing vigilance as a result of the threats. The irony hurt. Although she portrayed herself as the toughest woman on TV, she frequently felt helpless in real life as threats surrounded her. At the height of her Wonder Woman stardom in May 1978, Lynda Carter's first album, Portrait, was released by Epic Records. Carter even co-wrote 3 of the album's 12 pop and disco-influenced tracks. Her prominence on TV didn't translate into a successful record. Radio stations gave it little exposure, and the hits, All Night Song and Toto, never gained traction. It served as a sobering reminder that TV stardom did not always translate into musical success. Although 2 of the tracks were featured in a Wonder Woman episode the next year, Carter was unable to release another album for over 30 years due to the record's dismal sales. She was also adamant about proving she could perform live. She performed at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas during the summer of 1978, arriving prepared to be doubtful. The critics were taken aback by her. She won over audiences with her charisma and passion, and the shows received positive reviews. Her live performances were regarded as a success and demonstrated that she had more to offer than just her role as Diana Prince. Even though her record had not sold well, Carter had a challenging transition after Wonder Woman concluded in 1979. There were few acting roles, and she soon discovered that typecasting was difficult for her. Alcohol became a means of numbing her emotions during this time. What started off as an occasional drink quickly became an issue. Her friends observed that she frequently couldn't stop once she got going. This had a negative impact on her marriage to Ron Samuels, which dissolved in 1982. She later acknowledged that she had made numerous attempts to stop smoking on her own, particularly while she was pregnant, but she continued getting pulled back. By the cycle of regret and relapse, Carter fell in love once more in 1984 when she wed attorney Robert Altman. James and Jessica are the 2 children they created as a family. However, when Altman was charged in a significant banking scandal in the early 1990s, their bliss was put to the test. Prison was a real possibility in this instance. The media also kept a close eye on the trial. Carter supported him during it, all showing up to all the hearings. She jumped into his arms in relief when the jury cleared him of all charges, marking the end of the nearly 3-year ordeal. Carter's personal problems persisted even after her marriage stabilized. The anguish she was already carrying was exacerbated by loss, including a miscarriage that occurred in the years following her first marriage. She continued to use alcohol as a coping mechanism, and by the late 1990s, it was hard to ignore. This time, she sought treatment at a rehabilitation facility in Maryland with her husband's assistance. Although the procedure was difficult, she acknowledged that it was the only option. Support groups and therapy assisted her in confronting the causes of her drinking. She no longer felt alone for the first time. She opened up about her addiction and recovery in 2008 in the hopes that it would inspire others to get treatment. Her struggles continued after that. Juanita, her mother, was given an Alzheimer's diagnosis in 2003. Juanita, formerly a strong and self-reliant woman, started to lose her memory and self-reliance. Carter flew frequently to take care of her, experiencing both love and heartache as he saw her slowly deteriorate. In an effort to remember her mother and increase awareness of the condition, particularly within the Hispanic population, which is more susceptible to it, she became a champion for Alzheimer's research after her mother passed away. Continued to cope with the negative aspects of celebrity throughout it all. Years later, Diana disclosed that she experienced sexual harassment during the Wonder Woman filming, including a cinematographer surreptitiously inserting a peephole into her dressing room. She also talked about being abused by a prominent Hollywood person who she claimed had hurt a lot of women. She used her voice to warn others and advocate for change, refusing to allow these traumatic events define who she was. Together with Lonnie Anderson, Lynda Carter made a comeback to television. In 1984, with Partners in Crime, the critics were brutal. It was dubbed the season's worst show in one review. The decade, perhaps, they made fun of its shoddy writing and low-quality production. The show, which ran from late spring to November and had 13 episodes, received a 6.3 out of 10 rating on IMDb. After their shared ex-husband was murdered, Carter's character, Carol Stanwyck, a chic New York photographer, relocated to San Francisco to work with Anderson's character as a detective. The project was a complete mess, with a limited budget and last-minute screenplay modifications. Additionally, Carter later said that she was unhappy while filming. Nevertheless, she and Anderson both delivered polished performances that demonstrated Carter's versatility outside of her Wonder Woman persona. Carter played a completely different part in Hawkeye 10 years later. The program ran for 22 episodes, from September 1994 to May 1995, and was completely shot in British Columbia. During the French and Indian War, Carter portrayed Elizabeth Shields, a Virginian who established a trading post at Fort Bennington. Tragically, her story started when her husband, William, was assassinated by his brother, Captain Taylor Shields, after he betrayed him. She thereafter developed into a self-sufficient businesswoman and began dating Lee Horsley's character, Hawkeye. The show demonstrated Carter's ability to lead a serious drama and received a 7.8 out of 10 on IMDb, which is significantly higher than Partners in Crime. Carter reached out to new audiences in the 2000s by making astute guest appearances. Her 2013 part on 2.5 Men was a nod to her fame. While on Smallville, she anchored herself to the DC universe that initially made her famous. She transformed the show into a light-hearted homage to her legendary fame by portraying herself as Alan Harper's childhood crush. She continued to be seen by both popular comedy viewers and superhero enthusiasts, because to these appearances and appearances on shows like Law and Order, Carter portrayed a character in 2005 that combined nostalgia with modern appeal. She appeared in Disney's Sky High as a main power, a movie about a superhero high school. From the minute she entered the corridor, the students were scared by her persona, which was actually a cosmic energy comet. Carter persuaded director Mike Mitchell to give the character more abilities, arguing that since the original Wonder Woman was cast, the part had to be significant. In the United States, the movie brought in $63.9 million. This exposed Carter to children and families from a new generation. Her most notable comeback to superhero television was with Supergirl in 2016, in the show's universe. Carter portrayed President Olivia Marsden, the first female head of state. The original Wonder Woman cast was portrayed as a strong leader, which delighted fans. In the episode, her character made her first appearance on Earth, where she backed laws pertaining to alien rights. When Marsden's identity as a Durlan shapeshifter, a secret kept for several seasons, was eventually exposed, it was the biggest twist, her most significant recurring role since Wonder Woman. It spanned from 2016 to 2018. Carter disclosed upsetting experiences that she had been silent about for decades in March 2018, 2 years later. She said that a cameraman on the Wonder Woman production had spied on her by drilling a hole in the wall of her dressing room. The discovery ultimately led to his termination. She also disclosed that a prominent Hollywood personality, who had previously been subjected to repercussions during the Me Too movement, had tormented her. Carter asked, who would have believed her when she acknowledged that she never reported the occurrences at the time. Carter was also embroiled in controversy that year when Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman was rejected by director James Cameron. Gadot was really stunning, and he referred to the movie as a step backward. Carter openly retaliated, urging Cameron to cease criticizing the movie and standing up for Gadot and director Patty Jenkins. She scolded him of failing to grasp the character and reminded him that women were more than the sum of their parts. Although she made a compelling case, rumors of conflict between her and the updated role surfaced after she implied that Wonder Woman 3 might only be made if enough fans pushed for it. At one point, Lynda Carter had more suffering than solace from Robert Altman's profession. He became involved in the Bank of Credit and Commerce International collapse in the early 1990s, which was dubbed the largest financial scandal ever. Almost $20 billion was misappropriated, stolen, or lost. Altman, the president of First American Bank at the time, was charged with 8 felonies, including misleading the authorities and bribery. For 2.5 years, the lawsuit continued to drag on, with 45 witnesses and 15,000 pages of testimony. His trial alone lasted 5 months. He lost his influential bank positions and the law company he and his mentor, Clark Clifford, had established. Even though Altman was found not guilty in 1993, the financial damage he caused was enormous. Refused to leave his side during it all. She told the Washington Times that she completely supported her husband and was confident the truth will prevail. Later, there were rumors that Carter had been battling Warner Brothers for royalties related to Wonder Woman products for decades. There is no concrete evidence that she spent years embroiled in legal disputes with the studio, despite the fact that her role as the superhero, from 1975 to 1979, made her a lasting icon. It is safe to say that her portrayal of Wonder Woman was so well liked that she received another distinction at the character's 50th anniversary. Additionally, rumors have circulated regarding Carter's Kitchen, a restaurant that allegedly operated from 2008 to 2012. There is no solid proof that Carter is involved in such a scheme. It is known that she focused her energies on her family, charity work, and performing rather than operating a chain of eateries. The 2008 financial crisis had a severe impact on millions of Americans. At the time, stock values had fallen by almost 50%, and over 25% of U.S. homes were worth less than the loans on them. According to others, Carter and Altman were compelled to sell their properties at significant losses at that period. However, there is also no written evidence of that. They continued to live in their 1987, 18,000-square-foot estate outside of Washington, D.C. Altman would actually go on to improve the video gaming industry. The family eventually regained much of the security they had lost when ZeniMax Media, his company, was sold to Microsoft for $7.5 billion. The controversy about Lynda Carter's wealth persists to this day. There are reports that put it at $10 million in 2025 and $12 million in 2024. It's hard to pinpoint the truth. Real estate, private assets, and non-public royalties are common components of celebrity riches. Stable income was also provided by her music acting career, and recent roles in TV shows including Supergirl and Wonder Woman, 1984. The family's wealth was further increased by ZeniMax's success, which Altman constructed before to his passing. In 2021, Carter has relied on her 32-year-old daughter Jessica since losing her husband to a rare blood malignancy. The two have a strong relationship and frequently perform together at occasions. Carter continues to talk passionately about her kid and give fans glimpses into their lives. Even though she has experienced severe grief, she is still active at 72, after her mother fought Alzheimer's. She dedicates her time to promoting issues like research into the disease. She appears healthy and focused on her profession in recent interviews,